Begin the current Daf Mesech Nazir Daf Lamed Alf. Begin on the bottom line of Lamed Beis, where we continue and we begin the fifth parak in Mesech Nazir Parak Beis Shammai, which now we segue from more the Kabbalah to a Nazir B'tois, where erroneous Nazir is what the halacha is, and that becomes the theme. And just reintroduce something else that relates to that, as Taisus can explain, which then gets us into that discussion of Nazir B'tois. Today's Daf. Some discussing today's Daf are the machlokes b'sham misil regarding, which is brought many times in Shas, of hektish b'tois. If someone makes something hektish erroneously, if it has a halach of hektish or not. Now, the Mishnah describes a case which is much discussed in the Gemara, how to translate the case, even what is the case that we're talking about. Amashur shachar. Someone says a black ox, sheyatzim be'sirishon, that's going to come out of my house first. Hareu hektish should be hektish. Are you feeling lucky today? You know, my first ox that's going to come out, that's the one that's going to be hektish. And actually, b'yatza lovin. The one that comes out actually is not black, is white. So there's a machlekes in the Gemara. There's three different opinions in regards to what the Mishnah means. Does it mean that the white one that comes out, if you hold that hektish, it's the white one? Or is it actually the first black one that comes out? Or is it actually not even that he's saying that will come out of my house, it's that did come out of my house? I'm going to see in the Gemara how to translate this case, which is a machlekes, if it's going to be hektish or not. The one of the halachas to come up in today's daf is temura, because the Gemara contrasts the hektish b'to'os of an initial hektish to that of temura, which temura is the halacha. If you take a carbon and you say, I want to transfer the sanctity of the temura to this carbon to this chulin animal, so the chulin animal comes kodesh, but the original carbon remains kodesh, so you can't transfer, and it gets malchus because even isser, but it creates that same kedusha on something else. Temura b'to'os is the halacha that if someone erroneously does temura, he means to say, I want to transfer to this one, and by mistake says a different one, it's still going to be temura, as the Gemara learns out from a pasuk. There's a discussion in the Gemara, which is brought also many times in Shas, makdish bein yafa. When someone makes something hektish, does he do it generously or does he do it sparingly? And that relates to it's going to come into the discussion regarding what did the guy mean if he makdish something. Can we assume it's ba'ain ra or ba'ain yafa? So begin the current daf, the bottom of Lamed Beis, the bottom line, which begins this new Mishnah, this new parak. Says the Mishnah, Beis Shammai Oimrim. They say hektish to'os, hektish. If you makdish something, you say it should be hektish erroneously, it's going to have the halach of hektish, as we're going to explain. Now, Taisus just says, since on the next part of the Mishnah, which is really on Daf Lamed Beis and Beis, the discussion centers around Naziris b'to'os, erroneous Naziris, so we pick over here, this machlekes over here, starting off, which Naziris is a type of hektish. So we start off here with the general category of hektish b'tois. Additionally, says Taisus, because there's a machlekes b'sham misil that we're going to bring in Daf Lamed Alf on a base regarding someone that takes a neder and he goes to the chum to be shoyl on the neder. Beis Hill say to Beis Shammai, wait a second, don't you agree in this case that's going to be hektish b'tois, and therefore the animal's going to have to graze in the flock? In other words, so how can you disagree with us in the halach of hektish b'tois that we're disagreeing over here? So in other words, we're introducing this machlekes because it's going to come up later into the discussion of naziris. And to say, oh, you agree over here, so why don't you agree over here? So we need to let you know this concept that they disagree over here, so that you'll know later on what does Beis Hill mean when they say, as we'll see on Lamed Alf on Beis, regarding that point. Be that as it may, the Mishnah is just talking about this machlekes. Beis Shammai say, if you make something hektish b'tois, it's going to be hektish, as we continue top of Lamed Alf and Alf. But at Beis Hill, they say, no, ain't hektish. A hektish b'tois, if you do it by mistake, it does not have the halach of hektish. Says the Mishnah Ketzad. Here's where it gets complicated. Mishnah says, okay, so what's this case of hektish b'tois? What does it mean by mistake? So if someone says like this, it says, shor shachar, the black ox, sheyetze mi beisi rishon, that's going to come out of my house first, hadeu hektish, it's going to be hektish. Guess what? Everyone's waiting, bated breath, but yatzalovin, out comes a white ox. They say hektish is going to be hektish. Now, someone explained in the Gemara that the teaching of Beis Shammai, that he says it's going to be hektish, is going on the white ox, which that's the understanding of hektish to'os is hektish. Because you could say that his intention was to be makdish whatever comes out of his house first. This that he said black is because he made a mistake. It's hektish b'to'os. He thought that the black one is going to come out first, so therefore his mistake is not going to hold back the hektish from taking effect on the ox that really does come out first. Even if the first one that comes out is going to be white, the hektish will take effect on that. That's one understanding in the Gemara, as we're going to see, of hektish b'tois. It's a ketzad. What do you mean? How is this illustration of hektish b'tois? You made a mistake. You thought it's going to be black. Turns out it's white. Now, some want to say that no. When we're saying hektish, it's the black ox that comes after the white one first. That's going to be the one that's going to be kaddish, and even though it's not the first one to come out of the house. And it's talking about, as the Gemara is going to explain, that there's many black oxen. And when he says the first one, he doesn't mean the first one out of the house. He means the first one of all the black oxen. So when we say it's going to be hektish, it's actually going to be the first ox. And so too for the following two cases of the Mishnah, we're going to describe the cases of a dinner or cases of a barrel. You could also explain it in the same two ways. And just like we explained in the ratio for the halach of the ox, so too you'll have to translate the same thing. We're going to the next two cases we're going to explain right now in the Mishnah. Now, in the Gemara, Taisa says, I'll explain what's the necessity of saying all these three cases of the golden dinner, of the barrel of oil, of the ox. What's the necessity? Taisa is going to explain that in the Gemara. But the Mishnah now continues and says, the same machlekes, Beishamai and Basil, you have regarding two other cases. But first, Basil, he says, in hektish. So that's machlekes Beishamai Basil in this hektish betois of the ox, where you said black ox comes out of white one. Again, we don't even know what the case really is because the Gemara is going to discuss it. But if it has made some type of hektish betois, Beishamai says, yes, it's hektish, Basil says not. He says, whichever one Shiala b'yodah rishon is putting his hand into the box, whichever one is going to come out first, hadei hektish mi hektish. Guess what? V'ala shel kesef. He ends up taking out not a golden coin, out comes a silver coin. Beishamai hektish. It's a hektish, but it's going to be hektish. But someone say, no, it ain't hektish, not going to be hektish. Case number 3. V'chein, so too, chav shel yain, barrel of wine. Shatal b'yodah rishonai, the first barrel of wine that comes out, hadei hektish, that's going to Hashem, that's going to be hektish. Guess what? He pulls out a barrel. Also shashemen. It's not even oil. It's not even wine. It's oil. Beishamai hektish say yes, it's going to be hektish. Beishamai ain't hektish. It's not going to be hektish. Again, three very similar type of cases where you said one thing, ends up coming out something different. That's hektish b'to'os, which we'll see in the Gemara exactly what is the to'os over here and what is becoming hektish. But Beishamai says yes, it's hektish, and Basil says no, it's not going to be hektish. Okay, that's the mission. Now, this gets a little bit more difficult to follow if you're following with me in Taisus, because the Taisus over here, as you see, Taisus himself, or whoever it is that's editing, says, it's not Taisus obviously, but it's on Daf Yomi with Aleph, from Divrei Maschil, my timer onwards. So if you want to be following, you're going to be holding two pages at the same time, which some Gemaras like mine say that the reason why is because they wanted to do all the Taisus in here, all the Mishnayos together up until the end of the parak, because it's like really one big Mishnah. And then they put all the explanations of Taisus on the Gemara, of the Mishnayos, until the end of the parak and put that all together. So it's a little bit hard to follow, but it's on Daf Yomi at Aleph, like a third of the way through is where the Taisus begin on the Gemara. Okay, says the Gemara, quoting the halacha of the Mishnah, Beishamai oimim, they say that hektish v'chulu. Now, the Gemara is assuming, as we're going to explain in Taisus, that it's the white ox that's going to become hektish. Right? You said the first black ox that comes out is hektish. Beishamai says it's going to be hektish. V'chulu, etc. Says the Gemara, my tamai the Beishamai. What's the reason of Beishamai that we're going to say if you made a mistake and you meant the black ox and now it comes a white ox, that it's going to become hektish? Says the Gemara, I'll tell you why. Because the alfinon we learn out chilas hektish, mi soif hektish. Now, as Taisus explains, soif hektish is temura, meaning what is temura? Temura is you had a carbon, and then you want to transfer it onto something else. It's like the end of the hektish. You already had a kodesh animal, so you didn't have to initiate a new kedusha with like it's a chiddush. The person has a koich with his dibur to make an animal that's a mundane thing holy. No, it's not tchilas hektish. It's soif hektish. You're transferring a pre-existing kedusha of one animal onto another animal. What are we learning out tchilas hektish, which is being makdish something initially like this black ox from a soif hektish? Ma temura, just like the halacha is by a temura. When you're trying to swap a sanctity of a carbon. The halacha is afila b'to'os. It's even if it was erroneously, as the Gemara darshans in the second parak in Temura, Daf Yizayim and Aleph. Basically, this says yiyeh. The word yiyeh is, which it connotes an expanded existence, is including shoygig like mezid, which is going on the pasuk of V'hayuhus morasi yekaydish. Pasuk says that the animal, which original carbon, and its temura, both are going to be holy. So the word yiyeh is coming to include that even if you did it by mistake, which Rabbi explains over there in Tmura that if a guy thought to say, oh, he wanted to say that the Tmura should be an Oila. Instead he said Shlamim. So it's like when he has an Oila and a Shlam is standing in front of him, and he wanted to say on the Chulin animal that's in front of him, he wanted to say it's a Tmuchas Oila. But he said Shlamim. Or he thought he'll say that the black one will be Tmura. And he says white. The halach is that Tmura takes effect on the white one, even though that was a mistake. So Beishamai learns out, just like by Tmura, you see, it works b'ta'os of hektish. So to initial hektish is a fila b'ta'os. It's even going to be if you did it by mistake. That's the halacha of the Mishnah. When he said that the black ox that comes out of my house first should be kodesh, and out comes a white one first, the white one is going to be holy because what you have to say is that when he said the ox that comes out of my first should be kodesh, it doesn't make a difference if it's black or if it's white or if it's red. This that he said black, he thought the black one's going to come out first. He made a mistake. So that's exactly like the halacha by Tmura. He meant to say one thing, he said something else. You see it works by Tmura, b'to'os, soif hektish. So tchilas hektish, when you meant to say one thing, you just made a mistake because you thought the black one's going to come out first. It's also going to be the same thing. So that's how Beis Shammai knows that this halacha will be working even b'to'os.
It's not a show what he meant.
Right. Well, it depends. We'll see according to any shlav in the Gemara. But at this point is that he made a mistake. In other words, he wanted to do the first. No, it is about what he thought in this point of the Gemara. In other words, he really wanted to do the first one. He thought so. But really out comes the white one. We'll see that those are going to want to disagree for that reason about like what do you mean he thought. But the point is that he thought the black one's going to come out first. So he said the black one. But he really meant the first one.
I don't know the Hamshach of the parak. What is this Gemara coming into Nazir here?
So Taisa had said because we're going to end up having a similar machlekes between Misham and Sil regarding Nazir, regarding if it's betois works or not, and about Taitza b'tirah b'eidus. So we're already preempting and discussing about hektish because Basil is going to say, hey, wait a second, how do you disagree over here when you really agree with us over there? But so that's the reasoning for Beis Shammai that they hold it's going to work even betois. Ubesiloim, they say no. Hani Mili, when did we say this halacha is by Tmura? By Tmura, because it's already coming from a pre-existing Kedusha, right? You're trying to swap a sanctity from a Kodesh animal to a Chul animal. So that's why I'll say it'll take effect even b'ta'os. Aval achoisi hektish, but to go ahead and create a new initial hektish, which is what the case we're talking about in our Mishnah, b'ta'os loy machtinan. No, in error, we don't make it happen because we cannot learn out tchilas hektish from seif hektish. It's much easier to make a seif hektish because you're already going based on the pre-existing hektish than to make a new one. Okay, that's the machlekes. Now the Gemara asks, according to the reasoning of Beis Shammai, says the Gemara, Beis Shammai, I don't understand how this is working because Uma ilu Omar. Imagine if a guy would say, he wants to do a temura. Let this animal be in place of this kodesh animal. By midday. You think mihava temura mehi shaita? You think it's going to become a temura ready at that time when he said his speech? No. When does it become a temura? By midday when he says it should become a temura. So hochanami. So the Gemara says here, so when it's going to be revealed. What's the Gemara's question? So Taisus explains, he says, that what the Gemara is asking is as follows, is that how could Beis Shammai learn Tchilas Hektish from Temura? What's the question? I thought you're learning Tchilas Hektish from Seif Hektish. No, it's not comparable. Why? Over there, when he thought to say that the black ox should be Temura, and he said instead a white ox, that you're telling me by Temura that the Temura is going to take effect on the white one. If that's the case, we're substantiating what he said with his mouth. Lamaisa, he said the white. So say, Haskazak. So we're going to, even though it's a toes, but you said white, we'll make it white. But here, when he said, I want the black ox that comes out of my house first to be Kodesh, how can we change what he said with his own mouth? To the contrary, we should say that the man's intention was only to be Makdish, a black one. And that what he said and what he thought are the same. So how could we say that in his words are understood that he wanted to makdish the first one, even though it's white? Because by Tmucha also we cannot change his words. He says, and this is what the Gemara means to say. Imagine if a guy gets up in the morning and he says, I want this animal, this chulin animal, to be in place of this kodesh animal by noon, by chatzayim. In other words, when it becomes noon of the second day, then the hektish of Tmucha should take effect. You think it's going to be a Tmucha from the moment that he takes a neder in the morning that it should be me'ilah with it? No. When it reaches noon, then it's revealing that then it's going to be a Tmucha. So you see, even by Tmucha itself, we cannot change his words and to say, oh, it's going to be from now. So here also, in other words, in our Mishnah should say the same thing. We can't change his words. It's when it's going to be Megalia Milsa, like what he said with his mouth, that's going to be Kodesh. And he said a black ox. How can we change his words to say that we're going to make the white one as the korban, as hektish? Even if you can say hektish betois is hektish, but it has to be on what you actually did, which is you said the wrong thing to let that be. But here you tell me what he said, we're not going to do based on what he said. He said black, and you tell me now it's going to become white? How could we could be comparing these two cases? So therefore, because of this question, the Gemara now introduces a different interpretation for the halacha of our Mishnah. Says the Gemara, Amar Papa, Lekach nema rishoin. What does it mean, rishoin? It means l'ksheyetze rishoin. In other words, what does this mean? So if you would just read this, you wouldn't necessarily know what the Gemara means to say, but Taisus explains to us. He says, there are Papa holds that actually Beis Shammai is not learning hektish from Tmura. To say that hektish b'tois is a hektish and that the white one's going to be kaddish. Because you're right, like the Gemara just asked. It's not similar to Tmura. But Tmura, we're substantiating his, maybe erroneous, but we're substantiating his words. And here we're contradicting his words if we're going to be makdish the white one. No. Rather, when the Mishnah said that it's going to be hektish, you know which one's going to be hektish? The black one, not the white. What black one? It didn't come out a black one. It came out a white one. No. That's why he said the Rishon. That's what the words are up in the Gemara. He said lekach nema Rishon, l'ksheyetze Rishon. What do you translate? The Tosfos translates with us. What does it mean when it's going to come out the first one? Meaning, in other words, even though the first one that came out of the house was only white, even so we're going to substantiate his words that when he said the black one, that's going to come out first. In other words, it's talking about where he has many black oxen. And what he meant to say was, the first of the black oxen that's going to come out, that should be hektish. Oh, then the black one is going to be hektish. Now we're not contradicting what he said. Rather, he meant the first one that's going to come out of the black oxen. Which, of course, we don't have to tell you if, let's say, a black ox comes out first from the house, which for sure not totally his words are substantially, that's going to be hektish. But even if a white one, like the Mishnah says, comes out first, we're still going to explain his words that the black ox that's going to kind of come out first from all the other black ones, that's going to be hektish, and there has nothing to do with hektish but toys. There's no toys over here. Rav Papa holds that actually hektish but toys will have a hektish. And the way to explain the Mishnah is not the way we originally understood that the white one's kaidish, rather the black one. Now, Tais is bothered, then why doesn't the Gemara say Elam Rav Papa? Generally throughout Shas, we know when there's a change of interpretation, we say Ella only, is because there's no Amayra's name mentioned before, and you only when you have an Amayra, and you can say Ella Rav Papa, there's no Ella because there's no previous Amayra. But it's still changing from how the Gemara Havamina, the Gemara originally understood. In the beginning of Perek Beis and of Testament Aleph, that when the Gemara tells us that according to Beis Shammai, there's no she'ela of a hektish, you cannot ask, you can't go to the Chacham to undo your hektish. We had explained because hektish b'tois have a hektish. So you see, it is hektish. How's Rav Papa saying it's not, and it's for a different reason? So says Tosfos, yeah, that Gemara was not like Rav Papa. It was rather like the Abai we're going to bring shortly, that he holds, Beis Shammai holds hektish b'tois is hektish. But for this point of the Gemara, for Rav Papa, he's actually saying that this machlok is that's why you said that sheyitzim and beisi rishon. What you meant to say is it doesn't mean the first one coming out of the house. It means l'shikayetze rishon. It means the first black one that's going to come out, and that's what Beis Shammai held. Now, says the Gemara, but wait a second. But v'shoshachar ka'amar. But the word in the Mishnah was the black ox. That's singular. Mila iskin de lesle elehai. Isn't that telling us that there was only one? In other words, if there's only one black ox, then you can't tell me that what he meant, rishon, that comes out of my house first, means first from the black oxen, because there's only one. So then you can't say rishon of the black oxen. So the Gemara says, no, not necessarily the case. Like tzricha, you need it that even the isli train tlasa. He does. He has 2 or 3 black oxen, and therefore, when he says the one that comes out first, means the first of the black oxen, not the first one coming to the house. So now the Gemara says, Beis Hillel, they explain why do they disagree then? Why did Beis Hillel hold that it's not going to be hektish? Because if that's the case, sheyetze berishon miboile. What it should have said was that why did Beis Hillel say it's not hektish? Because if you're going to tell me his intention was to say the first of the black oxen, he should have said sheyetze berishon. That he shouldn't have said sheyetze mi beis rishon. That sounds like whichever initially comes out of the house. Rather, that comes out berishon. That sounds like first of the other black oxen. So Beis Hillel is just disagreeing because you can't really fit into the words he says. If sheyetze berishon, that comes out in the first, then you could have said first of the oxen. But sheyetze mi beis rishon, Beis Hillel doesn't like that interpretation, and therefore he says it's not going to be hektish. That's the interpretation of Rav Papa. However, the Gemara asks on Rav Papa's interpretation. Omalei Rav Mibarnish. Rav Mibarnish asks L'Ravashi on Rav Papa's interpretation. He says, Hi hektish b'toyesu? Wait a second. What's the words of our Mishnah? The opening words of our Mishnah was Bisham. It says, hektish, toys, hektish. And now it says the Mishnah case that I'm going to illustrate this. And it brings our case of Shor Shacha. What do you mean, hektish b'kavonahu? This is a deliberate hektish. There's no toys according to Beis Shammai, because you told me this is what he meant. You're saying it's the first black ox, and it's not going to be the first black ox. So why is the Mishnah calling it hektish b'toys? There's no mistake over here. Says the Gemara, that's not a question. I'll show you why we call it hektish b'toys. What does that mean? In other words, we're calling it, you're right, it's not your classic hektish toys. We're calling it hektish toys because in the beginning, you could really make a mistake in his words. And you would say, if you were reading his words, he meant the first one that comes out of the house, which is the white one. But we could explain his words to mean that the first of the black oxen to come out. So the Mishnah, the Gemara is like an interesting answer, like, we're calling it hektish b'toys because you would make a mistake in what he's saying. So that's what we're calling hektish b'toys, because you would have read to mean what he said, that it means the first one that comes out of the house. So telling you, no, it means the first black one. So it's not really a hektish b'toys, but we're calling it hektish b'toys because you would make a mistake what he really meant to say.
What is it when the Mishnah says that putting different words in the Mishnah? The Mishnah says that a white one came out, and
Yeah.
the Shammai says that it's hektish.
But they didn't say which one, they said hektish. So when we say hektish, what do we mean hektish? Do we mean the first one that comes out, which is the white one? Or do we mean, no, when the black one's going to come out, it's going to be hektish.
The Mishnah says the white one is hektish.
No, it doesn't say the white one. Read the words. He says, the shor shacha sheyetze mibeis rishon harei hektish v'yatzalav misham oimrim hektish. Vos is hektish. Shteit nicht. Yeah, when you're reading, your brain automatically goes and connects. Oh, that's the one. But that's a certain psychological principle that we have. We start putting things together. We automatically assume. But Rav Papa is saying no. But now the Gemara has a question again further on Rav Papa, because is that really so? B'Shami holds hektish b'toys lo have a hektish, as you're trying to tell me, because you're trying to tell me that you want to tell me it's specifically like a case where he had in mind. And we have to interpret it's the first of the black oxen. Obviously, from the fact that Papa is explaining it this way, that the Beis Shammai holds hektish b'toys is not a hektish, as the Gemara had originally assumed it is, and he's saying that no, but says the Gemara what's not. But we learn in the Mishnah later on the Perek, which Tais over there explains that Mishnah on Amud Beis. Misha neder b'nazir. Someone took a neder of naziris, v'nishal l'chachamim v'etiroi, and he goes to the chachamim. And they matter his ned of naziris. Now the thing is, but voice lebehem of reshes. He already had to separate an animal for his ned of naziris. So what's the halacha? Teitze v'tira be'eder. It goes out and it grazes in the flock. In other words, just like chulin. Now that's the words Rav Schwartzberg has on. And the Sefer of the Mishnah, we learn the following halacha. The Gemara quoting from the Mishnah now. V'amr lahain beishamai, Amr lam beisil beishamai. So Beisil said to Beishamai, wait a second. And we already referenced this earlier. This is why actually we quote in our Mishnah halacha of hektish, because the next Mishnah is going to go and reference this back. Beisil says to Beishamai, wait a second. Don't you agree hektish b'toisu? This halacha that we're discussing on Amud Beis. There he goes to the Chacham Matim, and then you say his animals go out to graze in the flock. Don't you agree because it's hektish b'toisu, since it was a mistake? Because he sees matir the neder, which is makes your whole neder an error in the first place. That b'teitza b'tira b'edis, so goes out to graze in the flock. In other words, just like you agreed to us in this case, agree to us also in the case of the black ox. This is what Beis Hillel is coming to ask Beis Shammai, that it should not be hektish. So now, what the Gemara is trying to show from this is obviously Beis Hillel heard from Beis Shammai that the reasoning what they hold by the black ox of our Mishnah, as the Gemara quotes, Mechlav d'sav Beis Shammai, obviously that Beis Shammai held, hektish b'tois, have a hektish. And that's what Beis Hillel said Beis Shammai. Wait a second. But look at the next Mishnah. You agreed to this over there that ein grace to us. So that it's not hektish at all. Then why are you disagreeing as well over here? Wait a second, that's different going to Rav Papa. Rav Papa interpreted our Mishnah not as hektish b'tois. And you just translate the word hektish b'tois because you would have thought what his words meant. But no, it's you don't see anywhere from here hektish b'tois have a hektish. It's that black ox that he said that's going to be hektish. It's not a mistake that it's the white one that's becoming hektish. So what's Beis Hillel referencing back to our Mishnah? Says the Gemara, it's not difficult. El Beis Hillel hu dekotoi. Beis Hillel made this mistake. Sabri, they thought Tamai de Beis Shammai. What's the reason Beis Shammai Mishum the hektish b'tois have a hektish? Because hektish by mistake is a hektish, and that's why Beis Hillel asked from our halacha. Now, Tosfos actually asked. He says, "Wait a second. How could you say that it was Beis Hillel's mistake?" In the next mission, we're going to see Beis Shammai responded to Beis Hillel from Ma'aser Behema, proving hektish b'tois is hektish. So how can you tell me it was only Beis Hillel's mistake when Beis Shammai himself goes and responds and says, "What, Beis Hillel, really? I'll show you hektish b'tois is hektish." Says Tosfos, no. Beis Shammai was telling Beis Hillel, you guys made a mistake. You thought my reason is because hektish b'tois. It's not. But you know what? I'll show you anyways that you're wrong. And says Tosfos, we find this like in the beginning of Masechtas Nida, according to your mistake, I'll still slug you up. This guy says the smart, gives a shit klali and says, you missed the boat, by the way, but I'll show you where you're wrong anyway. So that's what Beis Shammai does. Really, no. Hektish b'tois, I'm not coming from that is a hektish. And that's not the interpretation of our Mishnah, the way Rav Papa is explaining. But anyways, I'll show you that you're wrong. So therefore, it's not difficult on Rav Papa, because V'amar lohain Beis Shammai told to Beis Hillel, La mishum hektish b'toisu. It's not because hektish b'tois. Mishum da'atay le'diburi kama. Again, the reason of our Mishnah is not because of a real hektish b'tois. It's just he would have made a mistake in what he meant to say. That's what we're calling it hektish b'tois. It's not a real case of hektish b'tois. But the Gemara continues to ask on our Papa, is that really so? That Beis Shammai hold hektish b'tois a law of a hektish? That if you make something hektish by mistake, it's not going to hektish? But Toshima, let's bring a raya from a Mishnah on the next daf, on Amud Beis and Amud Beis. Mishnah tells us, and the words are missing over here, Shisha, Shahoyim Halcha Maderech. You have 6 people that were going on the road, as we continue to Amud Beis. V'echad ba kenegdan. So you have 6 guys, a pack of guys, a whole chaver, they're walking, and there's a guy coming towards them. Now, each one of these 6 guys is a grace of baldeya, and each one of them is going to halt fast with what he holds, and he's going to take a ned of Nazir based on what he's saying. Bama echad, guy number 1. The leader of the pack. He says, Hareini Nazir Shezeplein. He says, you know what? I'm a Nazir that this guy's that guy. If this is that guy that's from afar, the distance, I know, I remember, guys. If this guy is that guy, I'll be a Nazir. The second guy says, Hareini Nazir She'ein Zeplein. Second guy says, you know what? You really think you're smartest? I'll be a Nazir if it's not that guy. Guy number 3 speaks up. He says, Hareini Nazir She'echad Mekem Nazir. You know, I'm a Nazir if one of you guys is a Nazir. You have guy number 4 says, you know, I'm a Nazir she'ein echad mechem Nazir. If none of you are Nazir, then I'm going to be a Nazir. Guy number 5 says, you know what? I'll be Nazir sheshnechem Nazirim, that the 2 of you are Nazirim. And guy number 6 says, I'll be Nazir shekulchem Nazirim, if you own Nazirim. Right? Now you know what Talmud, So this is the 6 guys, each guy is saying something different than the guy before. Okay, we'll discuss this Mishnah when we get there. But at this point, just the translation, Bishamim, he says, Kulam Nazirim. They're all going to be Nazirim. Says the Gemara, wait a second. V'hach over here, hektish b'toyisu. As I'm going to explain in a moment. There is definitely a mistaken hektish over here. And yet, v'ktani kulam Nazirim. Yet still we're learning that they're all going to be as Nazirim. Meaning, in this case, we have that you tell me that they're all going to have the halacha of hektish, of Naziris. There's a Naziris b'tois. Because one of the first people, for sure, it's not like what he said, right? One guy said, I'm a Nazir if it is that guy. Second guy says, I'm a Nazir, it's not that guy, right? Even so, you tell me every one of these 6 guys are going to be Nazirim because he thought it was or wasn't that guy. But he made a mistake. And still you tell me, therefore, that the Nazir is going to take a...
He did make a mistake. He said...
No, it can't be. If you're telling me they're all Nazirim...
Yeah, but they don't understand Shammai because it's a simple thing. If this guy is this guy, then I'm a Nazir. He for sure saw, and you know this guy, then he's a Nazir. The other guy says, for sure I saw this is not a guy.
Right.
And therefore I'm a Nazir. Where is the mistake?
No, then the guy comes...
It
No.
wasn't the guy.
So then how's the first guy Nazir then? It's the same guy.
Oh, so that Shkilim Nazirim is a problem with the Shammai. How could be? But there was not a mistake. A guy says, I'm a Nazir if this guy is Re'ivin.
Right.
And it is Re'ivin. Where's
Right.
the mistake? But the guy says, I'm a Nazir if this guy is
It's not Reuven.
not Reuven. And he wasn't Reuven.
No, but it's the same guy. These 6 people are walking, and there's one guy walking towards them.
But one of them did not make a mistake.
Right, we're not asking from that guy. We're asking from the guy who did make the mistake.
No, but he didn't make a mistake. Bottom line, he didn't make a mistake.
But the other guy we're asking, the guy who did make the mistake.
But the guy who didn't make a mistake, so why does Shammai says they're all Nazir?
That's what we're discussing.
Yeah, but there was
One,
not a mistake.
right.
Shammai calls it a mistake.
No. The guy did no. They're not that everyone's a mistake. There is someone in there who makes a mistake. Right, not everyone. One guy for sure made a mistake.
Isn't it just a prediction that he's making? He's not really, none of them are really sure.
Okay, but they're all saying, "I'll be a Nazir if it's that guy," right?
Because he believes that that's who it is.
Right. So that's the way Toyas explaining it. That's called a Toyas. You made a mistake. You really wanted to become a Nazir because you were confident, but because you assumed something, right? And then that's a mistake. And still, Bishami says, "Lamaisa, you meant to say." Yeah, not every guy. The guy who was right is right.
It's just he didn't hear that. It's because of his thought.
Right.
He assumed, not because it really was him.
Right.
Maybe he had good eyesight. What do you mean he don't?
No, that's the guy. He's talking about the guy who got it right. The guy who got it right got it right.
Somebody got it right.
Right. And the guy who didn't get it right is because he thought he was getting it right.
Right.
And so therefore Beishamai still says you're going to be a Nazir. So wait a second. So then in our Mishnah you should say the same thing also, that according to Beishamai, Hektish B'tois would be Hektish, that when the Mishnah says that when he says the black ox, what we mean to say is that which one's going to become Kodesh is the white one. Because we could explain his words that in the beginning he had in mind to be Makdish, the first one that comes out. It doesn't make a difference if it's black or white, whatever comes out. He said blacks. He made a mistake that this is the first one that come out. But he really meant the white one. That even though you're right, like Taisa addresses, the Gemara had asked that Rav Papa was asking on the Havmin of the Gemara that you see by Tamura it's not Tamura until midday and not before that. Yeah, but that's by Tamura because it's explicitly it shall be Tamura by midday, and you cannot explain his words in any other way, so we can't contradict his words. But over here by Hektish, you could explain that is what he meant to say, that he wasn't coming to exclude the white one. He just thought that it's going to be the black one. But you could say that it was a Nazir B'toyis, it was Hektish B'toyis. So therefore, just like you see, Bishamai says the 6 guys, one of them is going to be, everyone's going to be a Nazir. Even though obviously he made a mistake, but he's saying, okay, but he meant to say. Here also you could say he meant to say. So that's the Gemara's question on Rav Papa, which is that you see from there that we hold the old Nazim. Here also you should say that it's going to be the white one that's going to be. Why do you have to say your pshat? You could say Hektish B'tois, like a simple understanding is that it's going to be the white one. Why are you saying it's going to be the black one? So,
is it dependent on the placement of the statement? If I say Harini Nazir, and then I describe the situation, I've already committed myself to Nazir.
right.
Whereas if I would say, if that's Ruvain, then I'll be a Nazir.
Right,
then
that could be.
I'm accentuating Ruvain as opposed to the Nazir.
That could be. Sometimes we do say that if you already said it and then you want to come to qualify, that we can maintain the first thing that you said. Could be. At the same time, it does sound like he's only saying it because of that, but be that as it may, it seems like, if you would want to take, ultimately it's still going to be an error, and why would it be considered as a valid Kabbalah? So therefore the Gemara is saying that our Mishnah Osher used to say it's going to be the white one because, okay, you made a mistake, so it should still be Kodesh. So then it says, the Gemara, Amri, they said, the Savi Bishami held that you're right. The Gemara exceeds. Hektish b'tois have a hektish. In other words, that from here, meaning from the next Mishnah, you could prove that Bishami holds hektish b'tois is a hektish. And therefore you're right. The same thing should apply in the halacha of a Mishnah by the black ox, because like we said, it's not similar to that of Tamura. Because Tamura, you explicitly said, it should only take a perfect from Nun, which was Rav Papa's original question on the Gemara. But hacha loy. In other words, from our Mishnah itself, you cannot prove to Rabbi Shloimy hektish b'tois is hektish, because, like we rejected, that you could interpret it in a different way, that it's not the white ox, it's the black one. But you're right, ultimately you're right. Bishami holds, and we know that throughout Shas, and you just proved to me that Bishami holds that hektish b'tois is hektish. You have 6 guys, each one's becoming a Nazir, obviously your Kabbalah b'tois is a Kabbalah. All Rav Papa was saying is from our Mishnah is Lav Dafka. Our Mishnah, you don't have to interpret like that. You could interpret our Mishnah that it's going on the black ox that comes up first, and not on the white ox. That was Rav Papa's interpretation. Now the Gemara brings Abaya Amma. Abaya says a third interpretation. So again, we had the Gemara's original Havamina, which was that it's Alt Hektish B'tois. We had Rav Papa who said, no, it's not Alt Hektish B'tois, it's not going to be the white one, it's actually going to be the black one. Abaya Amri says, the koin b'tzafcha. Don't entertain as we had originally entertained, which was really the Nakuda. We had the vowelization of the case of our Mishnah as sheyetze mi beis rishon, that will come out of my house first. Meaning the guy gets up in the morning and he says, the first one that's going to come out from my house, the black one, is going to be kodesh, and then the white one comes out. No, says Abai, it's not the case. He's not getting up in the morning saying this. The guy's getting up in the evening, where the animals already left the house to go graze by the pasture. V'aman is saying past tense. Shoshacha sheyatza. The nekudas have to change from yetze, from etzere, to kamatz. Sheyatza me beiserishin. That came out of my house first, from all the oxen, whether they be the black ones or the white ones. Lehava hektish. The first black one, the black one that they first came out of my house should be hektish. V'aman, they tell him, hey, tzadikol, love a nafuk. I'm sorry, it wasn't the black one. He said the first one that left my house. That that black one should be hektish. They said, Rebbe, it wasn't the black one. It was white. He said to them, "Ooh, had I known that the one that came out was white, I wouldn't have said black." And this is on Lamed Gimel Mabez, if you're following with the Taisasin. It says that now. So this actually gets pretty interesting. Now we could say that his intention was really for whatever's going to come out first. And that's why he mentioned black, because he thought he recognized the steps of the footsteps of his animals. He thought it was the black one. But most definitely his intention was for whichever one came out first. That's why it says Abaya, we're going to say, Bishami says, it's hektish, even the first one that was white, because we learn that from Temura, that's going to be hektish, even though you made a mistake. Meaning, as Taisa explains, Abaya holds that if you get up in the morning and you say the black one that's going to come out first, and they tell him at the end that a white one comes out, and he says, oh, had I known the white one's going to come out. So then actually, there Bishami agrees it's not going to be hektish. Why? Because you don't know that the black one's going to come out first. What do you think? He's a Navi? He's a prophet? What does that mean? The first one's going to come out. The black one, number 3 that's going to come out of my hand. Now when I pick the Powerball number, how do you know what's going to come out? You don't know. So why are you mentioning black if you had in mind whichever one's going to come out first? So we definitely assume that when he says black, he means black. Because if he meant that the black one's that's going to come out first, how do you know the black one's going to come out first? So most definitely, that cannot be learned out from a Timura. And it's not similar to the case of the 6 guys who were walking on the road, that there you say that he's going to be a Nazir, even the one that comes out, he was wrong, because Tais says an interesting chilik. He says, Lamaisa, the guy was Makabla Naziris. This that he says, oh, if it's that guy or not that guy, he made a mistake when he saw him from a distance. So you could explain what his mistake was. So I'll understand it's Nazir b'tois is Nazir. But over here, what type of mistake can you say he made that the black one that's going to come out first? And therefore we're going to say that no, he really means the black one. Because how do you know what's going to happen? There's no mistake. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
There's a huge difference, by the way, in the two different tenses. By saying that if that's Ruvain, that's different. But the Metzias of a black cow coming out from a white cow, he could have really wanted only to give if it was a black cow taka.
That's what we're saying.
It's a huge
No, but that's what Abayi's coming to say, that Abayi's going back to the white cow. Meaning, the Gemara originally assumed when we say hektish, it was the white cow. But Papa Change said, no, it's the black cow. Abayi says, no, it'll be the white cow. Hope I didn't just lose you over there. Right? But he says the white cow, but not when you said in the morning. It's only when you said in the evening. Because when you said in the morning, why should we assume you mean the first one that comes out, including a white cow? Why are you saying black? Well, you know that it's going to be a black, like you made a mistake? You made a mistake? How can you make a mistake like
the
this?
difference in his mind is that he only wanted to give a black cow. Whatever you can...
Right. That's why we're saying it's not in the morning. Because Bai is learning it's the one that Bisham is saying, hey, there's the white one. Bai doesn't agree that how could it be a white one? You have a premonition, I'm feeling lucky today, I think the black one's going to come. It doesn't make sense. You're not a Navi. But, that's what Tais continues, says, but if you say in the evening that the animal's left, you could say that he meant the first one that comes out. So why do you mention black? Because he heard the footsteps, he heard the oxen coming out. He knows his animals, he knows Sally and Bessie and all these different animals. He thought he recognized the black ox's footsteps. Oh, says Tyson, that's very similar to the case of when the 6 guys were walking on the road, that the guy made a mistake. At a distance, he thought it was that guy. He was confident it must be Shmuel, whatever. But his intention was to become a Nazir, even if it's not him. It's just because he was confident that it was. So too over here. His intention was to be Makdish, even if it's not black, but white. That's exactly what you can learn from Tamura. You made a mistake. But in the morning, there's no mistake. What a mistake. You don't know what's going to happen. So therefore, Abai agrees it wouldn't make sense to say the white one's going to be hektish in the morning. Whereas Beis Hillel hold that even such a case you cannot learn from Tamura, no, that it's not going to be hektish. So therefore, that's the interpretation of Abaya, that he says, oh, had I known that it's going to be the white one, I would never have said black. Okay, then the white one's going to be Kodesh. Says the Gemara, a technical question on Abaya's interpretation. Really? Can you really say that the Kohen B'tiara Asik, that we're talking about where it was in the evening that he said this statement? We'll read the words of the next case in the Mishnah, because all 3 cases are all the same. Dinner Shalzab Sheyala. The guy says the golden coin that's going to come out of this box is going to be hektish. It sounds like that he's saying it before it happens. Says the Gemara, no problem. Tani amended to read Sha'Allah, that already came out of the box. And now he's recognizing that what came out actually was silver. And he says, oh, had I known that the one that came out first was silver, I wouldn't have said the golden coin. And so it's regarding the 3rd case of the barrel. Don't read it that will come out, the one that did come out. So it's going in like he's saying it after the fact. So that's like Abaye said, you could understand that there's a mistake instead of before, where he's not a prophet. Problem is, the Gemara asks again, like we said, Chavish al Yayin Shatala. It says the barrel of wine that will come out. So the Gemara, Tani, you have to read it also that did come out. Okay, but now the Gemara is going to have a little bit longer introduction to ask its question related to the halacha of the Mishnah. I'm going to have Chizda. Chizda says the seemingly unrelated halacha. It says, Ukamba, a black ox, Bechivra in a white one, Lakia is flawed. What does that mean? If you have a black ox amongst a bunch of white oxen, it diminishes the value of that herd, and it's sold less because they have the black one mixed in it. Because the white are more higher value. Having a black one mixed in, it's like the black sheep. It's like the black ox. It ruins the value of the herd. Now, same thing is the other way around. Chivra b'uchma, white and black, is lucky is also flawed, but here it actually means something very different. If you have a white stain on the black ox, it's flawed. Why? Because you know underneath that white stain is a negav tzaras in the animals. The Gemara brings in Gittin of Samachesem and Aleph that they tasted the white in the meat and they checked and they saw that there was a white stain. They knew there was tzaras in that place. Okay, that's the halacha of Rav Chizda. Frek the Gemara relating to the halacha of our Mishnah. Tonight, in our Mishnah, we said the case was if there was a ox that's shachar, he says that's black. Sheyetze mebeisa rishon. This is going like the interpretation of that the ox that's going to come out of my house first is going to be hektish. Now, it sounds like the way you normally read the Mishnah, that the white one is going to be hektish, like the way Abaye had explained it. So the Gemara says like this: Kasaka daitach. The Gemara assumes ki makdish, when the person is makdish something, ba'ayin ra makdish. He does it sparingly, stingy. He's going to be makdish the minimum possible. Ba'amir b'shami said Allah of Mishnah have a hektish is going to be hektish. So what's the question in Rav Chizda? So Taisa explains. Since you told me that the white oxen are better than the black oxen, so obviously you know that his intention was not to be makdish the white one, because the guy's makdish ba'ayin ra. And although we're explaining that it's as if he's saying that the white one's coming out, and I'm going to think the white one's going to be hektish, but since the white one's better, most definitely he's lying. Most definitely the white must be worse than the black. And when he says that the black is going to be hektish, so obviously that then his intention is that the white one that's less than that is also going to be hektish. That's why we say that when you say the first black one, oh, we don't mean dafka black, it's even the white one. Well, that's difficult in Rav Chizda, because why would we interpret that his words mean, including the white, if white is better and the guy's makdish b'ayin ra, not b'ayin yafa? So obviously, you see now like Rav Chizda must be that the white is worse than the black, and therefore when you're saying black, yeah, that includes also the white. Says the Gemara that, no, it's not difficult, because says the Gemara that ve'ela mai. So the Gemara says, okay, what are you going to say? No, the reason why it's not difficult, because actually ba'ayin yafa makdish. When the guy is makdish, he actually is makdish in the higher quality. And therefore when the white one comes out and he says, had I known, so we believe him because a guy's makdish ba'ayin yafa. The problem then becomes, look at the next case of the Mishnah. The guy says, okay, the golden coin that comes out first, and actually of all the kesser, actually comes out silver, which is lower value. But Shammai say, oh, hektish can be hektish. Wait a second. Obviously, because the guy is makdish ba'ayin ra. And the reason, because he said gold, which is better, so then when it comes out silver, it's going to be hektish because it's less than gold. But the inference is, had he said silver and it came out gold, it would not have been hektish, because the guy's makdish ba'ayin ra. So wait a second, then you have to say the ratio also the same thing, that the black one is better than the white, as we explained, because or else, how could the white be included? That's difficult on Rav Chizda. Says the Gemara, okay, so what are you going to do? Ve'lamai, obviously ba'ayin ra makdish. So what do you have to say? Okay, you're right, it's difficult on Rav Chizda, and you have to say, as you see from this case of the gold and the silver, that obviously a guy's makdish sparingly, and therefore silver is included in gold, but if the other way around, you're right, would not be kodesh. The problem is, look at the third case of the Mishnah. The guy says, okay, the first barrel of wine that comes out is going to be hektish. And it turns out it wasn't even wine. It comes out of oil. They say, okay, it doesn't make a difference, it's going to be hektish. The problem is, wine, oil is better, is higher quality than wine. Wine is more inferior than oil. So wait a second. You should say though the dafka wine is makadosh, because you tell me ba'ayin ra. So how could wine be included? How could oil be included? Which oil is higher quality? You just proved to me from the second case ba'ayin ra makdish. So says the Gemara, that wouldn't slug up what we're slugging up of Rav Chizda. Meaning, we're refuting Rav Chizda by showing the ayin ra. You're asking me from the third case. No, imisham haloi kash. That wouldn't be difficult, because b'klil lashon, we're talking about in the Galilee, the chamra adav mimishcha, where actually there wine is more expensive than oil. Because I could tell you ba'ayin ra is makdish, and the Mishnah is in the Galilee where they had so much oil, and wine was very expensive, more than oil, and therefore when you makdish wine, for sure oil is going to be included, and therefore the ratio is still difficult on Rav Chizda. So the Gemara says, Reisha Kasha Rav Chizda. So the Gemara says, no, Rav Chizda would tell you, Ki Amri, when did I tell you this halacha was Betura de Karmenoi, which is a certain country called Karmena, which that's where I told you this halacha. But you're right, in general, like in our Mishnah, I would tell you that actually not that way, that the white one's not better, and actually the black one is better. Now at this point is where Tosfos says that, so what do you need the 3 cases of the Mishnah? So he says, I'll explain to you. The golden dinner was necessary to say that case to tell you, that's where we learn about Ein Rahu Makdish. Because that's why I tell you that, okay, silver is included in gold, but gold would not be included in silver. The ratio of the case of the ox is coming to tell you that, not like Rav Chizda, meaning at least in that, wherever that location is, that actually black is going to be better than white. And the case of the barrel of wine, we need to tell you the case of the Galilee to tell you that we don't go after Rav Mekaymes, that because we go after the Galilee, which says that Tzarchin, but that is a nice shot. He says, why you need all 3 cases? Now the Gemara just concludes, V'amar Rav Chizda says, Uchma, he said, Rav Chizda says another halacha regarding oxen. He says, Uchma, the black ones, ala mashche, are good for their hide, for their skin. Sumka, the red ones, is labische, for their meat. And chiv, the white ones, is laridya, is for plowing. Which says it's just an nafkamina for when you're doing business to know that if you're buying the hide, get the black one, that's the best. The red one, the meat is the best. And the white one, is best for plowing. Says the Gemara of Rav Chizda says the halacha we mentioned before, uchma b'chivra lakya, that black and white is inferior. In other words, that the white ones go down in value because the black one that mixed inside of them. But since you tell me the black one has better hide than the white one, so the questioner understands that wouldn't make the white one better than the black so much that it should be better than because of the hide that the black one has over the white one. So how are you telling me that the black one makes the value of the white one go down if you still have the benefit of the black one regarding its hide? Says the Gemara, Ki Amri, when did Rav Chizda say his first teaching that it's going to make it flawed is Betura de Kamanoi. That's when the white one is more chashuv than the black one for everything. The other teaching of Chizda was talking about other oxen where they're most definitely right. The black is better for its hide, and therefore that's why in the Mishnah we say the black one is better because although the white one's better for plowing, however the maila of the hide is so good of the black one that when you may makdish the white one, which is lesser, included in the hekdesh of the black one, that would be include the white one too. Thank you to any time for hosting us.